Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are boarding the great galleys of history. We're sailing straight into the story of medieval Europe's real power brokers.
Venice, Genoa, Pisa, and Amalfi, the mighty maritime republics.
Exactly. And these cities weren't just, good at trading.
Or not at all. Our sources show they were something more. They were custodians of maritime heritage. They took the very practical arts, like navigation and map-making, and turned them into a rigorous science.
And sometimes a fiercely guarded art form.
Precisely.
So the mission for this deep dive is to really get at the secret of their influence. And it seems to center on this one core idea, the living map.
Yes, this concept is key. They created these dynamic cartographic systems, constantly updated with every single voyage. It was proprietary knowledge.
So this is a mix of utility, beauty, and, well, secrecy that let them shape centuries of exploration.
And to really get how big of a deal this was, you need to picture the time period. We're talking about the 10th to the 13th centuries.
A time of huge change in Europe.
Massive flux. And these cities pop up as independent states. They're not run by kings or emperors, but by wealthy merchant oligarchs.
Right, so they're translating commercial success directly into power. Yeah. Into technological and cultural architecture.
And that architecture, well, it started with some incredible real estate. Their locations were just strategically perfect.
Okay, so they were set up to basically carve up the Mediterranean. Let's look at where they actually were.
So you have Venice holding the northern Adriatic. That's the gateway connecting, say, the German hinterlands directly with the high-value markets in the Levant.
Middle East, yeah.
Genoa, on the other hand, it faced west. That gave it command of the Tyrrhenian Sea and, crucially, the emerging Atlantic routes.
And Pisa. We don't really think of it as a port today.
Right, but back then it controlled the Arno River, a vital internal artery giving it access to all the rich markets of inland Tuscany. Think wool, textiles.
Super valuable. And Amalfi.
Amalfi is perched on the Sorrentine Peninsula. It specialized really early in direct trade with North African ports, long before its northern rivals got in on the game.
So you've got this geographic advantage, but it also seems like the timing was perfect.
Absolutely perfect.
Right.
Europe's population was booming, which meant there was this insatiable demand for goods you couldn't get locally.
Silks, spices.
Spices like pepper and cloves, Chinese porcelain, and also critical raw materials like alum, which you had to have for dyeing textiles.
But this wasn't just about consumer demand, was it? There was a political angle.
A huge one. The Byzantine Empire was slowly declining, fragmenting, and that created a power vacuum in the Eastern Med.
Okay, so an opportunity.
A massive opportunity. These agile Italian merchants just stepped right in. They established direct, aggressive trade links with Islamic ports, with Byzantine territories, with the Crusader states. They became the unchallenged middlemen for the known world.
So they had the location, they had the demand, but how did they master the technology? That's what really separates them.
That is the key context. They professionalized the entire operation. I mean, they transformed navigation from what was basically risky guesswork into an exacting, quantifiable science.
And I imagine this was fiercely competitive, right?
Yeah.
And it's easy for us to romanticize these living maps. But was this knowledge weaponized? Was there cartographic espionage between rivals like Genoa and Venice?
Oh, absolutely. This knowledge was currency. When we talk about their technical mastery, the most important innovation was their early and superior adoption of the magnetic compass.
And this wasn't just a rock floating in water.
No. They developed the dry compass, a pivoted needle mounted over a directional card. It was a true scientific instrument.
And they integrated it right away. It wasn't just some novelty.
Immediately, it allowed them to create something called tavelet plotting boards, where a sailor could keep a precise course even if stars or landmarks were totally hidden by fog. This was years, decades ahead of other European powers.
Which leads us straight to the portal and charts, right?
Yeah.
The living maps themselves.
Exactly. And these weren't some static document made for a king's library. They were practical working tools. Cartographers were constantly adding new data, new sailing directions from captains the moment they returned to port.
The level of detail is just staggering when you look at them. It's not just the shape of the coast.
Not at all. They included meticulously measured harbor depths, specific places to anchor, identified seasonal currents, prevailing winds, even safe paths through dangerous waters. It was a massive proprietary database.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because the utility blends with art.
It does, but that art had a strategic purpose. Cartographers used vibrant colors, even expensive gold leaf, not just to be beautiful, but to make the charts durable and readable in a dim, swaying ship's cabin.
So a practical tool becomes an expression of Renaissance craftsmanship.
Perfectly put. And look at the compass rose on these charts. It wasn't just for direction, it became the cartographer's signature. Unique, elaborate designs that identified the creator and, by extension, the authority of the information. It was high-value intellectual property.
And that commitment to aesthetics, it went way beyond the maps.
Oh, absolutely. If the maps were the brain of the operation, the ships were the muscles. And you have to talk about the arsenals, the shipbuilding complexes. They were marvels of industrial precision.
The Venetian arsenal is just. It's a stunning logistical feat. The sources say its organization rivaled a modern assembly line.
It's true. During its peak, they could produce an entire ready-to-sail galley in a single day.
One day. Just try to imagine the scale of that. The coordination of thousands of specialized workers. Sailmakers, timber workers, metallurgists.
And just like with the maps, the shipbuilding itself was an art form. It was driven by civic pride and diplomacy. The figureheads, the painted hulls, the symbols of the city, these weren't just decorations.
No, they were floating ambassadors.
That's the perfect term for it.
I mean, when a Genoese carrack or a Venetian galley sails into Constantinople, it's an immediate display of technical superiority, commercial power, and the artistic soul of the Republic. It's geopolitical advertising.
And this fleet connected their vast networks. I mean, they stretched from the Iberian Peninsula for silver into the Black Sea for grain and slaves, all while dominating the Levantine spice routes. They were the engine of global exchange.
So what was the structure that supported all this? The outposts, the Fondaci.
A fondaci in Venice, or the loggi in Genoa, yes. We cannot overstate how important these were.
Because a fondaco was way more than just a warehouse, right?
Far more. Think of it as a fully functioning miniature extraterritorial embassy. It often had its own chapel, its own court system, living quarters, and crucially, its own banking and insurance services.
So it's a forerunner of a modern foreign direct investment hub. It guarantees your business is safe even when you're far from home.
Exactly. And within those walls, commerce became a vehicle for cultural ideas. The fondaci were true hubs of dialogue. You'd have Byzantine mosaic artists meeting Moorish craftsmen, Italian bankers negotiating with Arab merchants.
So the cargo itself was creativity.
It was. We see Venetian glass techniques pop up in Syria, and then Islamic geometric patterns start appearing in Italian architecture. They weren't just moving goods, they were moving human innovation across cultures.
Which brings us to how all this local expertise eventually translates into truly global ambition. This knowledge base becomes the launch pad for exploration that would, alter the world.
Precisely. You can trace the lineage directly back to these maritime academies. Christopher Columbus, he was Genoese. He relied heavily on the cartographic and navigational knowledge that had been refined for centuries in his home city.
And Marco Polo, the famous Venetian, he turns what starts as a family trade mission into one of the most comprehensive geographic accounts of his era.
And these guys weren't just brave adventurers. They were highly equipped technical experts. They were carrying specific, advanced tools.
Like the refined dry compass you mentioned.
The compass, the specialized portolan charts, which were perfect for plotting courses along unfamiliar coastlines, astronomical instruments, and of course the shipbuilding know-how to build vessels that could actually survive the open ocean.
And all this intellectual investment, it was driven from the top down, wasn't it, by the ruling oligarchs, families like the Dandolo or the Doria.
Yes, they saw their power as a kind of cultural stewardship. Their money flowed right back into the institutions that were designed to maintain their maritime superiority.
So it's deliberate, dedicated government oversight.
It is. In Venice, for example, you had special magistrates, the Savi Agli Ordini, whose entire job was to monitor trade routes and make sure that technical schools and libraries got their funding. Governance and intellectual infrastructure were one and the same.
And this patronage shows up in the architecture, which doubles as this incredible cultural display.
Think about the Doge's Palace in Venice. It's the administrative center, sure, but its great halls were filled with enormous maps and globes charting the Venetian Empire. It was a constant reminder to any visitor of their power and their reach.
And if we connect this to their legacy, you can see these seafaring motifs everywhere in the cities themselves. The stone facades are carved with anchors, tridents, galleys.
It solidifies the idea that the sea was the source of all their wealth, all their identity.
And their visual language, the heraldry, was unmistakable. It was like a diplomatic credential.
A powerful one. Venice's winged lion of St. Mark holding a book that signals sovereignty and piety. Genoa's simple red cross on a white field mark their goods and territory everywhere, from the Aegean to the Atlantic.
So these weren't just decorations. They were territorial markers, diplomatic passports that announced who you were and the power you represented.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for us today? I mean, is there a practical influence that's still around?
Oh, profoundly. Modern Mediterranean shipping lanes still largely follow the trade routes and principles established by these city-states over 700 years ago.
Wow. And the cultural continuity is still there, too.
It's actively preserved. You can go to museums like the Museo Storico Navale in Venice and see these original, beautiful portolan charts and ship models. You can see the sophistication for yourself.
And there's even that competitive spirit, right?
That's right.
The regattas.
Yes. The Italian Navy maintains the tradition with annual regattas. It's a fierce competition between the four historic republics. It honors the past, preserves the old vessel designs, and keeps those specialized rowing techniques alive.
It seems like the overall legacy, then, is this masterful lesson and the balance between innovation and tradition.
I think so. These republics prove that technical progress and economic dominance are only truly enduring when they're woven into a strong, celebrated cultural identity.
That feels like the core takeaway. For them, commerce and exploration weren't just ends in themselves. They were vehicles for a deep cultural conversation.
They mastered the world by mastering information and transforming it into both power and, well, beauty.
And when you look at the sources, you see they didn't just track geographic boundaries. They documented the world as this rich, complex tapestry of intellect and humanity and aesthetic appreciation. They're living maps, in a way. They still guide us, showing us that the balance between fiercely protected knowledge and shared cultural pride, that's what defines enduring success.